Hey, what's up? This is Phoenix and welcome back to my channel. I encourage you to hit that like button, to subscribe, and to share, and to invite your friends to come join us. Let's make the year 2020 the absolute best that it can be. Welcome back to my Philosopher series. Today I'm going to talk about Sophism. You might be wondering what Sophism is. Sophistry is defined as a fallacious or misleading argument, and this is often how the term is used. Often the term is pejorative. If someone is being a sophist, they are not telling the truth. They are doing things for superficial reasons and expressing arguments for shallow ends and the like. But actually, sophistry originated as a strand of philosophy in ancient Greece, and there is a lot of literature on this, Socrates of which did not like sophism. And what this brings up is the contrast between the truth and rhetoric, or Socrates and the Sophists. And it brings up a larger theme of, is an argument more important if it tells the truth or if it does something, if it is effective? Now, this is a very interesting question, and I think there's a lot that can go into this, and there's a lot that we can consider as far as these notions. And I will acknowledge that I myself have been more of a Socratic thinker, in that I see the truth as being more important than the actual presentation. But through time, I've also learned that there is value in the presentation as well. And I think that this is very important to consider, especially when we realize that you can convey something in a very specific way, and you can convey it in a very effective way, and you can also still tell the truth. I think that's the best way to mediate it. However, in ancient Greece, as we learned from Plato, for example, Socrates did not usually like the Sophists. There are some ambiguous moments where Socrates is not too critical of sophistry and of the Sophists, but overall, this has become through time the debate between truth and the truth value of a claim versus the actual appearance of it, or the even aesthetic, or either aesthetic or presentation itself, and what that is specifically. Often, in this case, you have the contrast between rhetoric and truth, and so a good example of this might be in law, where sophistry can be practiced. The truth is less important than the presentation of the argument and its persuasiveness, and that would actually be an example of modern sophistry. The Sophists were interesting historically because they did charge for money, and they actually charged quite a bit. And it's interesting to think about how this is a normal practice in modern times, where a speaker can come and be paid for their services. As I had mentioned before, there's also the example of lawyers, and you get this with a variety of different thinkers and people that convey things by way of rhetoric versus the truth. I personally think that the truth is more important than strictly the presentation, but as I've stated, I think it's good to have a little bit of a balance of both, because there's a lot that can be learned. Though I also see why these two are often opposed. It seems that when you are telling the truth, this may not always be persuasive or interesting to people, and yet if you convey something in a beautiful way, that doesn't mean that there is always substance to it as well. And so for me, overall, I think that it is a very interesting debate with thinking about what these things are and thinking about what is more important, and not necessarily dichotomizing it, but looking at it historically and thinking about how sophistry influenced Socrates and Plato, and how sophistry has been throughout history. So you might be wondering a little bit about the ideas of the Sophists, who were actual thinkers, and Protagoras is one example that comes to mind. Protagoras of which had the statement, "Man is the measure of all things," and this could be the type of relativism that Socrates did not like. Socrates didn't like this relativism, and he didn't like things being subject to a person, subject to that specific person or to a specific individual and the like. Now, this is interesting to consider as well, that relativism, which is often defined as a notion, as a piece of knowledge, or as a practice or context that is dependent on the very specific situation in which it arises. So a lot of relativism says that things are context dependent. So one of the most common examples is cultural relativism as an example, where everything is dependent on the culture, everything is relative to the culture. Now, it seems that Protagoras specifically had in mind subjective relativism, where things are relative to the individual. And you can definitely see why Socrates would not like this, because Socrates was about the truth. Socrates was about laying down these principles in a very specific way and in an intelligible way. So, in terms of thinking about relativism, relativism is not always true, and what is relative is not always the only basis, and so Socrates focused a lot on the truth value itself and what that could tell us versus the things that are much more unintelligible, such as things that are relative to a specific context. This is Phoenix, and I hope that you enjoyed my talk on sophistry, on sophism, and I hope that you will check out my other videos. You can find them on the playlist tab, so I definitely encourage you to check that out. You can find my Philosopher series there, and I hope that you'll check it out. Also check out my books. I'll put the link in the description. And yeah, this is Phoenix, and thank you for watching. I will see you next time.